I call this one Hump Days in a Bumpy November. Wednesdays, the hump days. The days that rain or are stained in pain. Climbing up the stairs or driving away your cares. It's the middle of the week, whether for the strong or the meek. Optimists say it's half over, but for some that hope is found as often as a four-leaf clover. Some can overcome the sound and the fury, but some only hear in their heads the judge and the jury. But fear not, St. Luke's, for there is always hope. There's no need to sit around and mope, for those days will come and they will go, regardless of whether they blow or they glow. Because Wednesday is just a day, whether in November or in May. Obla-dee, obla-da, life goes on. La la, how the life goes on. Thank you. Thank you to Paul McCartney, by the way, who wrote that final stanza as the final lines of the chorus to the Beatles song Obla-dee, obla-da, which you all heard on the way in. 1 month, 2 Wednesdays, 2 days that went in opposite directions. Though this does not represent my life as a whole, both of these days I had everything going for me. But one ended in that fairy tale ending, while that's debatable with the other. My point here today is made so eloquently in French as c'est la vie, in Spanish as así es la vida, and in English as that. You can't control everything that happens in life, but simply put, obla-dee, obla-da, life goes on. Let me explain. For my dad and me, it was the culmination of a combined 68 years of pain with no gain. This torture is also known by another term, being a fan of the Chicago Cubs. The Major League Baseball team for which I've been rooting my entire life for hadn't won a World Series since 1908. 1908. Joshua Chamberlain, hero of the Battle of Gettysburg during the Civil War, was still alive. It was the longest drought in Major League Baseball, and the recurring chant around Cubs fans was wait till next year. Wrigley Field even once adopted a phrase placed at the gates of hell in Dante's Inferno. All hope abandon, ye who enter here. It's always been rough to be a Cubs fan, but it's something that has held the fan base together and made fans in Chicago and the brave supporters outside the city bonded together in a love of perennial losing. My grandmother was the epitome of this tradition. Grammy would call every Saturday morning and rant about how badly the Cubs and the Bears stunk the previous week, reading me the headlines from the Chicago Tribune sports page, as well as engaging in her favorite activity, roasting the arrogant and childish Bears quarterback Jay Cutler. When Grammy passed away in January, my aunt made sure to reference her love for Chicago sports in her obituary, but added in parentheses, except Jay Cutler. Well, first it was the Northbrook Star, then the Chicago Tribune, Rolling Stone, the Daily Mail in the UK, the Washington Post, ESPN, and USA Today. Almost too fittingly, Grammy's obituary somehow went viral. Her trademark skill those Saturday mornings was how quickly she could hang up the phone at the end of our conversations. I don't think I ever beat her to it. Here, as always, she got the last word. But this was the year that began to reverse all that pain in the Windy City and beyond. Wednesday, November 2nd, approximately 12:30 a.m., Game 7. It was the Cubs' first World Series appearance since 1945, and it couldn't have felt more right. My dad and I watched in awe as the team fought back from 3-1 with tenacious play and the spirit of the city behind them. Our hearts were pounding out of our chests in the bottom of the 10th inning when Cubs third baseman Chris Bryant fired the ball down to Anthony Rizzo at first for the final out. My dad and I felt something we'd been waiting for generations to occur. Everything was right, and by some miracle, it happened. The dark cloud over Wrigley Field was lifted, and the curse was broken. The following Wednesday was a different story. It was 7 months in the making, but that night it was time to show the world a different side of me. For those of you not on Facebook, Instagram, who put your hands over your ears during Miss Parkbergard's great school-wide announcement on Wednesday afternoon, I was on Jeopardy! I know many of you watched the episode, and I thank you all for that, but let me get into the specifics of this breathtaking experience. I spent 3 days in Washington, D.C., the first day of which I toured the monuments and got to know the 15 contestants, some of the most quirky, hilarious, and brilliant kids I've ever met. But the big day was next, and I was ready to fulfill a lifelong dream. As the lights dimmed, there I stood, a 16-year-old valedictorian on my left, a former spelling bee semifinalist to my right. It was the culmination of everything I am, a lifelong lover of learning, a level-headed, competitive kid with a thirst for knowledge who rarely gets ruffled. However, that night, my palms were sweating as I recognized the magnitude of the moment. A loud, booming voice pierced my already shaking 6'7" frame. This is the Jeopardy! Teen Tournament. It was a dream come true. I was in trivia heaven, the place I belong, surrounded by kids who shared a similar craving. To top it all off, I was on the same stage with one of my childhood heroes, the formerly mustached Alex Trebek, a legend of the trivia world. I did get a lot of questions right. Let's just start with that.
A junior from Darien, Connecticut, Porter Bowman.
Porter.
What is stressed out?
Good. Porter.
Who is Prince Caspian?
Yes. Porter.
Was the Mexican-American War?
You're right. Porter.
What are Oscars?
Yes. Porter.
Was the $5?
Good. Porter.
What is a yardstick?
Good. Porter.
Who is Audubon?
Good. You're on the plus side again. Porter.
What is Rotten Tomatoes?
.com. Yes.
.com.
Porter.
What is IMAX?
You are right. Porter.
What are trailers?
Yes. Porter.
What is a leak?
Good. Porter.
What is a god?
Yeah. Porter.
What is Sri Lanka?
That's it. Porter.
What is the Dead Sea?
You're right. Porter.
What is Xavier?
Good. Porter.
What is Los Alamos?
Right you are. Porter.
Who is Mendel?
Good.
But then there were a few other moments, like this one. And Weird Al Yankovic's song, I Lost on Jeopardy! Works pretty well to sum them up.
Money, money, money for 800.
Answer there. The only daily double in the round and a chance for you to move out of third place and take the lead, as a matter of fact. You have enough money to do that.
I'll risk 1,200, Alex.
Okay, here is the clue for you.
Well, I knew I was in trouble now. My hope of winning sank, 'cause I got the daily double now. And then my mind went blank.
A silver tetradrachma from the 300s BC features a great portrait of him. Porter?
Who is Apollo?
No, who is Alexander the Great? Alexander the Great.
I promise you I did not pause that. That was just extremely awkward silence. And let me apologize to the Latin department, as well as Mr. Mark Freese. As the show neared conclusion, I was in a close third, but still faced a long road to qualification for the next round. As the familiar music of Final Jeopardy rang through my ears, the camera panned from podium to podium. While my fellow contestants furiously scribbled down their answers, I stood there taking it all in. My mind flooded with memories of the countless episodes of Jeopardy where so often the one Final Jeopardy question decided the entire game, as it did that night. But as the outcome of one question would define my Jeopardy experience, would it define me? I'd spent thousands of hours traveling to History Bowl tournaments on my own, even founding and captaining the St. Luke's Quiz Bowl team. Would a possible misstep dampen my love for academic competition? I decided to bet everything I had, because why not? My ability to take pragmatic risks is what got me here, and so I took another. I went for it, and I didn't hold back.
Porter, we start with you. It was an up and down game for you, But you have 5,300, and you wrote down, what is the Hope Diamond? Sorry, that's not going to be good. That's wrong, and it'll cost you everything you had. So you dropped to 0.
The timeless "ooh, sorry, Porter" was all I heard, a classic phrase from Alex's polite Canadian lexicon. As a lifelong fan of the show, I knew what that phrase meant, and I stood there realizing that my dream was ending. I got the question wrong, it happened, and I kind of had a feeling it would. Deflated but not defeated in that moment, I wanted to shake the hands of the explorers, pioneers, scientists, politicians, leaders, and authors whose individual life's work had helped propel me to the Jeopardy stage. I look back on the years of classes and teachers whose memorable moments have filled nearly every nook and cranny of my brain, including my heart and my soul. I remember perusing the New York Times as soon as I knew how to read. My 5th grade teacher reading the Olive Branch Petition in an English accent, and playing Jeopardy in my living room with a pen as a makeshift buzzer. I stepped back and took the time to appreciate all that had shaped me into a Jeopardy contestant. And I didn't need a win to validate my passion. I was neither the valedictorian nor the spelling bee whiz. Rather, I had reached that stage solely because of my insatiable love of learning, and that was incredibly humbling. Winston Churchill once said, "The definition of success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm." So I bet the house and didn't win. Is that failure? Failure would be allowing this experience to dim the fervor for intellectual curiosity and fellowship which landed me on Jeopardy in the first place. And I will never give that up. That, I suppose, according to Churchill, makes me a winner. Despite my uber positive take on my experience, and it was incredible despite the result, the best part might have been the tweets. Now, I'm not on Twitter, but my contestant buddies pointed me towards some pointed jabs, and I couldn't help but laugh. Of course, my episode aired the night of the same day that we elected our next president. And how well-timed, Jeopardy, to have a well-spoken, well-dressed teen from the tri-state area. In other words, to some, I was the second coming of Mr. Trump. Let me just give you all a few examples. Porter losing on Jeopardy right now is some form of justice for yesterday, I guess. Ugh. Porter on Jeopardy ended with $0, and if that doesn't represent my life right now, I don't know what does. There's a kid from Darien on Teen Jeopardy. His first name is Porter, hashtag just Fairfield County things. And finally, on the scale of who needs to lose on Jeopardy alone, based on name alone, Porter comes in a close second behind Charlton. Pretty good. Humor aside, I was overjoyed to have random Americans blow off steam by throwing 140-character punches at me. But, as Weird Al ends his song, well, I sure hope I do better next weekend on The Price is Right. So, one perfect ending and one that was incredible but ended a bit differently. Two separate outcomes, but what could I do? I'll tell one last story. The day after Thanksgiving, I attended a tree lighting ceremony on Main Street up in Nantucket. Vice President Joe Biden and his family were visiting for the holiday, and he and his army of Secret Service men stood among the crowds watching the festivities. I got in line to take a picture with him, but just as I was about to step up to him, one of the Secret Service men said, "Sorry, bud, no more pictures. He's going to have some family time now." That was out of my control. I was painfully close to getting a selfie with Uncle Joe, but it wasn't meant to be, and there was nothing I could do. But here's what I can do. It is a legitimate dream of mine to run for office someday. I want to lead a life of meaningful, impactful work for the betterment of our country and our world, because that is what I can control. You can't control a whole lot in life, but you can control your passion, compassion, hard work, and persistence. Sometimes you'll win the championship in the most perfect of situations, and other times you'll lose it all on national TV. But the inevitability of life can't stop you from staying the course, from following your moral compass, and from being true to yourself day in and day out. I strive to keep this in mind each and every day, because maybe someday Joe Biden will be in line to take a picture with me.